Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Key Ingredient Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Norman Love, founder of Norman Love Confections. Norman started his career as a pastry chef and has grown his passion into a globally recognized brand. Norman, thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. So I'm really excited about this interview. I mean, I obviously I'm a fan of your product, and I want to learn more about that, but also your journey from where you started to your success. So if you don't mind, for those listening and watching, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Of course, it started at a very early age with me. I had a love for art, and at an early age, my grandmother, mother were always very active in the kitchen, during holidays and so forth. And they both were very competitive as desserts came, and it was a time that made people happy. And for me, it was an incredibly memorable moment in my early days of making things with love to and made people happy. And my love for art at an early age, I found the culinary arts, and I set forth. I think second grade, I knew that I wanted to be a chef.
Did you really? Wow.
And as I began my career, 15, 16 at ice cream parlors, I had moved from Pennsylvania. I was an avid ice hockey fan, player, with hopes and dreams of playing in college hockey when I was younger. And my family moved to Hollywood, Florida in 1973. At that time in South Florida, there wasn't a whole lot of ice hockey, and I needed to refine myself. And I found work. I found kitchens. I found making ice cream was another way, again, to make people happy. And once again, gravitated to the sweet side of the kitchen. My first pastry chef job was in Deerfield Beach, Florida. I was 18 years old, working with a Welsh pastry chef in a very busy restaurant, and began to learn and absolutely passionately enjoyed the whole dessert thing, bakery, the smells, the excitement of decorating and creating and expressing art. My last job before I opened my business in 2001, I was the corporate chef for Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. I was in charge of all the pastry and baking operations globally. What that entailed was everything from corporate purchasing directives to opening, special events, troubleshooting. I opened 38 hotels globally for Ritz-Carlton, and I was traveling over 40 weeks a year, sometimes months at a time. But as a culinarian, it was an incredibly accelerated education, having the ability to visit so many different countries, experiencing different cultures, ingredients, cooking methods. And for me, I've been all over Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Korea, Japan, mainland China, Hong Kong, and on, and the Middle East, and of course, Europe. And I traveled extensively for 12 years.
Wow.
And it was a sacrifice, a personal sacrifice, but a professional education. And I had two small children at that time, and they often would take me to the airport, and I think they thought I worked at the airport when they were very young.
Sure.
But it was a huge sacrifice of my life, my personal life, a strain for my wife, of course, and for my children, as I was constantly on the road. In 1999, I was given the opportunity to captain a pastry team, which was called the Coupe du Monde. It was the World Cup of Pastry. It was a competition that took place in Lyon, France, biannually, still does today, and is the biggest stage for pastry chefs in the world. And basically comprised of 3 chefs in a kitchen, 9 hours, specific criteria of artistry as well as edibles in front of tens of thousands of people throughout Europe, televised through Europe, and was a really big deal, and took us 18 months of preparation. This finely orchestrated ballet in the kitchen for 9 hours. I obviously was the chocolate guy. I was always leaned towards chocolate no matter where I was in the world. Chocolate was always the most well-received dessert, and I always gravitated to what made people happy, going back to my childhood. So it was an easy transition for me, and it was what I was, as the captain, I did the chocolate centerpiece, the artistry, as well as, involved in all of the edibles. And our team came back in 1999. We had won a bronze medal out of 22 countries. We were on the podium. So for us, it was a wonderful accomplishment. And I had a friend who was very much involved. He owned a magazine in New York called Chocolatier magazine, and it was pretty instrumental in my career early on. And we both shared a dream. We both shared a vision that if there's Wimbledon, a French Open, a US Open, why couldn't there be another pastry competition in the world? Because the Coupe du Monde, the World Cup, was the only one of its kind.
Sure.
And at that time, they gave away 9,000 euros for first prize. And in 99, that was about $9,000. And we felt as though if we gave away tremendous prize money, we would draw the Michael Jordans of the world, the pastry chefs that can't find the time. It's an incredible commitment to compete on a global level, an international level. And the money involved in raising money and, to promote the team and to get the team to Europe to compete was, a big effort. So we created the first competition in Beaver Creek, Colorado, in 2001. TV Food Network came and televised, and it happened to be the warmest day in the history of the Farmer's Almanac.
Wow.
And wasn't a very conducive environment for international professionals to be successful. So all the planning and all the hard work in putting together an incredible international competition turned into a difficult situation for many of the chefs in a warm climate. So the second year, TV Food Network came back, and we learned that American consumers loved to watch pastry chefs in makeshift kitchens doing this artistic expression. It later turned into a television show on TV Food Network called The Challenge. Our competition moved to Las Vegas. We had a bigger audience. It gained global traction, was most talked about competition, and I left the Ritz-Carlton for this reason. I had been struggling to balance my life. I had been struggling to rejoin my family. And I saw that this was an opportunity to leave corporate America, the job that I loved, but traveled extensively, and had an opportunity to make a living and give back to the industry. We created a educational symposium called the World Pastry Forum, where I brought the best pastry chefs in each of their categories for an educational week, symposiums, two seminars a day. Students were coming from all over the world, and then entry into this international pastry competition, making it the most comprehensive dessert week ever. And the world recognized it, and we began to gain traction, and we began to make a few dollars. And TV Food Network ratings were growing.
Sure.
And I thought that I had found that balance of life, but I was very nervous. I was in my 40s. I had 2 children. I had left a steady income and probably the best pastry chef job, corporate chef and job in the world.
Yeah.
And I was nervous sitting in a friend's medical building, 600 square foot office, worried about, my income. I was entering at a very late part of my life, I felt, a whole new direction of excitement, but had little knowledge in production and understanding television and understanding, that side of it.
It's a whole other world for you.
It
Sure.
really was.
Yeah.
And so I decided to start making chocolates in my office. I bought a stainless steel table and a reach-in little refrigerator. And I, of course, had all the tools. I had so many contacts in the chocolate manufacturing world that all the manufacturers were sending me chocolate to use. And I began this artistic express chocolate. You see, I always had this very artsy eye. I always felt like food needed to be beautiful. Americans love to eat with their eyes. And I wanted to create this artistic expression, you see, because chocolates looked the same to me. If they were La Maison du Chocolat from Paris or they were Whitman's Sampler, they looked the same in the box. And that element of surprise, that beautiful artistic surprise, that wow that existed in the dining rooms didn't exist in chocolates. So I began to create this artistic expression by applying colored cocoa butters to the chocolate and creating, this expression, this artistic chocolate. And the world, my friends around the world gave me so much, jazz that you can't put red on chocolate, you can't put green on chocolate. But I was an American trying to make singular flavors that were easily identified for Americans. We were learning about ultra premium chocolate. Europeans have been going to the chocolate shop forever. That's where you buy chocolate. Here, you go to the grocery store, not necessarily a chocolate shop.
Sure.
So I began educating, I think, our customers here in Southwest Florida, on true artisanal product, which means using fresh ingredients. It means to be consumed in a short period of time, but when you open that box, it was this artistic wow, that wow factor that existed everywhere else in the dining. So I wasn't the first I didn't create the technique, but I was the first to put it on chocolate. And we fast forward now 22 years. I was working alone in an office, and USA Today wrote an article. This is the month after 9/11, October of 2001. And I thought I would sell chocolates to the hospitality industry, which had been, obviously it had been gone to zero nearly after 9/11. Yeah. Corporate America wasn't traveling. And in fact, I was in Las Vegas at the bakery show, which was every 3 years, looking for packaging on 9/11. And it was a bit of a stumble, I think, coming out of the blocks for our little company. But I was really trying to supplement income just to try to make something special and sell them to friends. I didn't know how to ship the chocolate. It's too hot here in Florida. How could you possibly ship chocolate in a UPS truck or FedEx truck that's 120 degrees in the summer?
Sure.
So I would drive them from Marco to Tampa to friends in the hotel business that I knew, because I was so involved in networking and recruiting for the company for Ritz. I just knew a lot of chefs around the world.
So you did that yourself? You were driving around? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife was a dental assistant. And after the USA Today article came out in January of 2022, it started in October of 21, naming me the top 10 chocolates to buy for Valentine's Day in the United States. We weren't even a company yet. I was just making chocolates.
Wow.
We were under the radar. I was just supplementing some income. I was in the production business, if you recall. And from there, everything started.
I was going to say, that was a big boost, I would imagine. Sure.
Yeah, I didn't have a credit card machine. If you recall, back on Daniels Parkway, there was an ATM and a little gas station on the west side of 75. I would send customers to the ATM to get cash because I didn't have a credit card machine. I was really just wanting to make some chocolates to help supplement my income as we began to develop the production business.
Sure.
It was shortly after that Godiva knocked on my door. And I said, we see this brand new, style of chocolates, and we're losing some market share and branding. Would you be interested in making chocolates for us? I wasn't in the chocolate business. I was just supplementing income. Through a long negotiation, I decided to do a test pilot for them in 2002. 11 Neiman Marcus's and 11 of their top stores in the United States. I made out of that 600 square foot space with a couple friends from Ritz that I asked to come help me. And my kids, my wife's friends, we were packaging chocolate through the night, wondering, what am I doing? I was trying to balance my life. I was trying to slow down.
Sure. And
it turned out to be the biggest success of new release in, I think, the history of their company back then.
Wow.
And they came back to me, the 350,000 pieces I made for them. They asked if I could make 1.3 million pieces. And I said, no, I'm not in the chocolate business. And I built a factory, and today we have around 150 employees, 2 factories, one that produces entirely chocolate and confectionery, nearly 7 million pieces a year. And the other factory is producing all the pastry, the bakery, and the gelato for all of our retail stores and a few of the wholesale accounts that we cater to. A very active e-commerce platform today. It's obviously continually growing. COVID certainly accelerated that a few years ago, and we've invested a lot of time into creating, an e-commerce platform with a lot of room for growth. We did a big renovation last year to help us build productivity and produce more chocolate because we had really hit the ceiling a few years ago. And then expanded our shipping, receiving, fulfillment, and packaging to 30,000 square feet off property so that we can facilitate all of the e-commerce and wholesale customers and corporate gifting customers that have contributed to the growth.
Wow. There was so much there that I want to get to. So if you don't mind, maybe we'll backtrack with a few things. Excuse me. So a couple things. You mentioned being an artist when you were young. And I found that intriguing because what you do is art, right? What kind of, was it drawing? I mean, what kind of art?
I think at a really early age, I wanted to be a cartoonist.
Did you
I
really?
used to
Okay.
enjoy drawing. I never was really talented enough, I think, to ever really pursue a profession. But I've always loved art. I love sculpture. I love glass blowing. I love creative craft-like art. I mean, I love all mediums of art. So, food was my medium. It was the way that I could express art, whether it be on a plated dessert, or it could be a beautiful cake, or a chocolate artistic centerpiece that would be a sculpture.
Sure.
So it was my way and my release and my way of expressing art.
And when you were a kid playing hockey and having this interest in making chocolate, I mean, that's a very different type of hobby. Tell me about that. I mean, what was that like?
Well, I don't know if necessarily that the chocolate thing was such an early age. It was, influence of grandmother and aunts and mother. Always actively competing, with desserts. It was always a big deal.
And also spending time together, which is a really big thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So for me, it was like the first taste of seeing that how much people really enjoy food, and the importance of sitting at a dinner table and bringing people together and expressing love through food.
Wow. So let's go back to the art part, because I'm looking right now, for those who actually could see this. This is kind of like Tiffany to me, right? I mean, when I look at this box. So when did you go from being the pastry chef to making chocolates to deciding that you were going to market yourself in a way that you do that? Because this is beautifully packaged. And of course, when I open this, it's going to be even more beautiful. But tell me about that a little bit.
Well, I've always had a huge entrepreneurial spirit since a very early age. And I always saw myself as owning a business or owning my own business. And primarily for the reason that I've just, even at a young age, I mean, I've always loved business. I've always had a business mind. And a lot of chefs, not necessarily have strong business minds, but I felt like I've been blessed with, ability to make desserts, but also understand business. And certainly I've learned a lot along the 22 years that we've been in business, a lot of adversity, and learning to pivot and learning to grow a business. But if you go back to the early days with Ritz and understanding to listen to your customers and to understand your customers, and our customers, when I began to make these chocolates, used to call them jewelry, and that they reminded them of jewels, or they reminded them of, they're too pretty to eat, or, oh my gosh, they're just so beautiful, I can't eat them.
Sure.
So it was a lot of the inspiration in designing the packaging to look like a jewelry box. And there was definitely some thought to the madness early on. And that's where the shape came from. The color was, I used to purchase packaging prior to being able to afford proprietary packaging through a company in Montreal that would bring packaging from France and Italy, beautiful chocolate packaging. And I could buy 100 of these or 50 of those, and we were just starting out. And one day I received the box in that chartreuse-like color, and it was with brown. And I thought, wow, this is really a beautiful combination. And we adopted the brand from there. Today, we bring in 10 40-foot containers of packaging, along with some domestic manufacturers that we use as well. But yeah, the business has grown, and we purchase a lot of boxes now.
So what are the busiest times of the year? Obviously Valentine's Day, Easter.
Christmas is actually the busiest time for us.
Is it really?
It's because it's the longest holiday. So corporate gifting begins in November. A lot of companies around the country that gift our products to their clients, and we do a good job of drop shipping to our clients. And then all the way through, December 24th, our retail stores are crazy busy. So it's the longest holiday. It's definitely the most volume of chocolate that we produce in a short period of time is Christmas.
Wow. So what percentage of the business now is corporate gifting versus retail?
Well, retail is still about 50% of our business. And the e-commerce business just continually grows. And we have really spent a lot of effort in surrounding ourselves with very skillful digital marketing and social media, and trying to help to push and to grow our e-commerce. We do a very good job in receiving an order and shipping an order to a customer around the United States. So it's certainly an area that we have a lot of interest. Our corporate gifting, we haven't even tapped. You know, we've just hired Yossi, our new corporate director of sales, and she comes with us a tremendous amount of experience, and we see endless opportunities in the corporate gifting world.
Sure.
You know, and it's not just for holiday. I mean, there's so many different companies, types of companies that gift all year round, and we see a lot of potential and inevitably more boots on the ground in different parts of the country.
Yeah. What is the vision? I mean, so how many actual locations do you have right now?
6 retail stores that we operate between Sarasota and Naples. We are aggressively looking to expand. We're ready to sign the lease. It's at the legal team right now for West Palm Beach. We see 10 more stores on the East Coast from Palm Beach to Miami.
Wow.
So we are struggling to find quality real estate. Coming out of COVID, there was a lot of companies coming to Florida and still
and
come
still
to Florida.
are. Yeah.
So we are, working hard with some real estate teams on the East Coast to continually identify. We see Boca. We're working on one in Boca right now, and Delray right now. Boynton Beach. We'll see Fort Lauderdale, and obviously North Miami is a huge, and South Miami are big areas for us. With eventually Orlando, Tampa, St. Petersburg will happen.
Wow.
We love brick and mortar. We like brick and mortar because not only are they profitable, but it helps to build brand awareness. It helps to build visibility. You see customers here in Florida, a lot of tourists, a lot of snowbirds that come down and experience our brand, go back to either Northeast or Midwest, gift, and it all roads lead to e-commerce. So,
sure.
So we're looking to make a big push over the next 5 years in retail.
And do you see yourself going out of the state of Florida at some point? Or?
I think eventually we see a lot of potential in the state of Florida. So, but yes, I think that's probably an accurate
sure.
assessment.
Well, so going from a passion to an entrepreneur are 2 different things, right? And I know you highlighted this a little bit, but we do have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to this podcast. What are some of the lessons you've learned? I mean, because again, there's one thing to love to be a pastry chef, love to cook, love to draw, love to do all different types of things, but it's also very different. We see this with physicians all the time, right? Because physicians go to school to learn, obviously, how to be a doctor, and then all of a sudden they have to market their business. They have to learn other things, hiring. What are some of the lessons that you've learned?
I think the most important lesson over these 22 years has been to never compromise the integrity of the product. I think oftentimes entrepreneurs, business owners start something and they gain traction. They gain popularity. The business begins to move north. They see some success and they lose focus on the product and they begin to focus on the almighty dollar. And I think that's a recipe for destruction. I said, so for me, it's always been about how good, not how much. And you have to focus on the product every day. You have to focus on service every day. They're the 2 most important things that we do. I'll tell you a story that touched my career and certainly affected my life. So I opened 38 hotels for Ritz-Carlton over the course of my life. And if any of you listeners have ever opened a hotel, 38 is a lot of hotels to open in a lifetime. One's usually enough. And Horst Schulze, who was the CEO for Ritz-Carlton and certainly the man behind the brand for so many years. When I started, there was only 9 hotels in Ritz-Carlton. And today, I don't even know how many they have, many. But it was a very family, very tight-knit group with strong philosophical values. And my first job was in the Ritz-Carlton St. Louis. I had come from California. I had a small son. I was given an opportunity to be a pastry chef for the Ritz-Carlton. They were certainly the top or one of the top brands of luxury hospitality in the world. And it was a privilege to be part of it. And I was sitting in orientation my first day. And during the course of all the openings, I listened to this more than 100 times. Horst Schulze would always find it was imperative for him to speak to the all-new staff first day because he believed that significant emotional events, you had an opportunity to penetrate behavior. And that first day of a new job is a pretty emotional event.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there totally intimidated. Am I worthy? Do I have the skills to be successful? And he spoke about that day, a baseball player. And he said, if the baseball player today hits 3 home runs, is he successful? And of course, the 500 employees are all sitting there as intimidated as I was, and nobody answers. So, well, of course he's successful. Will that baseball player get a new contract? No, not necessarily. Well, tomorrow night, this baseball player hits 3 more home runs. Is the baseball player successful? And everyone's sitting there, maybe a little bit easier now. They say, yes, he's successful. Well, will the organization give him a new contract? No, not necessarily. Over the course of the season, if this baseball player continually overachieved, continually maybe won the batting title, maybe helped the team, contribute to winning the World Series, would the organization potentially look at this individual with a new contract? And this is the part that I believe sitting there that day that really affected and changed the way that I think. You see, as a young kid, I always pointed north to say, I want to be successful one day. I want to be an entrepreneur. I was instilled a huge work ethic and always motivated, tireless motivation to be the best, always going to work to be better than yesterday. And I had this desire of always wanting to be successful. I want to be successful one day. You see, what Horst Schulze taught the team that day was, you see, success is every day. You go to work every day to be successful. And what the future is called is reward. And if you think about that, if you don't go to work to be better than yesterday, you don't go to work to be excellent, you don't go to work to be the best. Through hard work and being the best, I guess you're rewarded. And I thought about that long and hard and said, you know what? Success is not the future. Success is every day.
Wow. That might be the most memorable thing anyone said on this podcast, Norman. Thank you for that. Very, very well said. I want to also get an idea of the psyche that was involved when you made the decision to leave the Ritz-Carlton. Because I know you mentioned that you were in a very stable position. You had a great job. You had a great career. I know you were missing your family. You weren't around as much as you'd like to. And as a parent, I certainly understand and could appreciate that. What was it really like? I mean, really bring me into that moment. And was it a moment, or was it over the course of weeks, months, years? I mean, what really built up that you said, I'm willing to trade all of this in, all of this security and success for the unknown?
I don't know if it was one thing that caused me to make that decision. 11 and a half-ish years, 12 years of working hard. And learning, experiencing, networking, being part of a very successful organization was extremely rewarding, professionally rewarding for me. I was tired. I wouldn't say burnout, but I was tired. I was tired of traveling. I was away months sometimes, and I was tired. And I was looking for that balance that so many food and beverage people look for in life, which is not always so easy to find.
Say, does it really exist?
Yeah. I'm still searching. And I think that the competition created a new avenue, a new opportunity for income, a new exciting and much more balanced life that I could stay at home versus being away all the time and missing the sporting events, the church recitals, the school plays, and so forth, and to rejoin my family. So I don't think it was an easy transition, because I'm in this 600 square foot room, this office that was part of a friend's medical building, and they had Jazzy 2 wheelchairs on the wall. And here you go from 100 miles an hour for many, many years to sitting in an office behind a desk. I used to get in the wheelchair and zip around the office wondering, what am I doing? I'm like totally bored.
Sure.
But a funny story with us starting this this international pastry competition and this television show is that back when, so we're just, we're young, we're young, at this, producing television. We were executing television shows for High Noon Productions, who sold them to TV Food Network. And I found myself later on, when we first got TV, my partner and I were high-fiving ourselves, saying, we finally made it, because sponsorship dollars, television, the biggest visibility, will help to, help to boost sponsorship dollars. And the sponsorship dollars are what's fueling the events and our income. And in hindsight today, looking back, we created this show called The Challenge, where pastry chefs in makeshift kitchens over a course of time created artistry and carried them to a table for judging. And I'm thinking, and of course our competition, which was getting televised, and we're just thinking we got the pinnacle of advertisement, of exposure, visibility. And in fact, if I was a little bit smarter and a little bit wiser, I felt as though we started reality culinary television.
It sounds like it.
Never knew it. And
when you were telling me that, that's exactly what I was thinking.
If I had been a little wiser, and perhaps, we got a production company together and we were producing this versus executing and selling them, maybe it would be a different outcome. But I'm very blessed today, and I feel very fortunate that our local community has supported the things that we make every day. And for that, I'm very grateful for how things have found their way.
Yeah. I'm curious about the creativity part of what you do. So when I look at the product here, I say, it's just perfection, right? Every little detail. You see the details that we don't, of course, but how do you continue to evolve the creativity that's involved in your product? Because that you could just continue to produce what you do, but I'm sure every so often you want to make something a little bit different.
Let's be honest, as the business has grown, my responsibilities as the CEO and operating a company requires a lot more time than my kitchen time. So what's important in growing an organization? And for me, it's always about finding extremely accomplished professionals, surrounding yourself with incredibly accomplished professionals, and empowering your team to be as good as they can be. Give them the tools necessary to be successful, and allow them to be creative and to be successful. So we have a lot of long-standing staff members who have developed, who have brought so much to Norman Love Confections, and have molded and assisted in molding of who we are today. So it's a collaborative effort in creating newness, in trying to stay proactive, trying to stay the pioneer versus following trends. We were the first to start this, so we feel there's a need to continually push the bar and creating, line extensions and fun holiday lines and new and innovative flavors and designs and so forth. So it's an ongoing effort, but surrounded myself with, incredible people. Dan Forgay has been with me for 15 years, and he runs the entire chocolate production. And Dan came 15 years ago and told me he can give me 1 year, and has been now 15 years and represented the United States some years back in the biggest stage for chocolatiers in the world in Paris called Le Masters de Chocolat. And he was the United States representative, finishing in the top 10, which was just an incredible accomplishment for him and for the company and for the country. So once again, it's about empowering your team, finding the right people, giving them the tools to be successful, and allowing them to be as good as they can be. And that's how an organization's foundation, and that's how a company grows.
Sure. When you've had the type of success that you've had, you're not going to do everything right? Along the way, you're going to make some mistakes. Are there any mistakes that kind of stick out that you'd share with us? And also, based on what they were, what did you learn from them?
Oh my gosh, there's just probably more than I can ever remember. It's not possible to start a company as an entrepreneur and not make mistakes. You have to be somewhat of a risk taker. So you have to believe in the product and who you are. But and adversity. It happens. Things happen. How about 2008? I was ready to sign a big lease at Mercado. They were just digging the dirt in 2007. that coffee shop in the middle of the square there was going to be a Norman Love Confection dessert
I remember
restaurant.
hearing that, actually. Yes.
And some of my friends who I run around with that look after me, that are a lot smarter than I, said, you better grab some pine and batter the hatches, because this might be a difficult time. And,
Sure.
and trying to prepare the team, what's to come. You're well aware in the business that you're in. 2008 was a tough year, and 9, 7, 8, 9 were tough years.
Mm-hmm.
So, never deviating from quality and continuing to push forward, just managing your business tighter. And somehow we were blessed to not lose $1 in 2008.
Wow.
But we were prepared for the worst. There has been so many, just the growth of a company and it took me from 2002 until 2010 to open my second store, and making sure that the product was right, that we could move product from Fort Myers to Naples was our second store on Tamiami. And it's proven to be our most, popular, busiest store. And It's a wonderful store. And the Naples customers have really supported our products here in Southwest Florida. But it's a constant battle every day. And learning, designing a box. What do I know about designing a box?
Well, you did a good job.
It's finding the right partners, and it's every step of the way. The bag, the attention to detail, the service, the merchandising, the flavor selection, listening to customers. What do they want? And making sure that you deliver product. And I've always felt that simplicity, trying to create singular flavors that are easily identified, that Americans understand, comfort foods, things that bring you back to your childhood. When I created peanut butter and jelly, I can't believe how popular that piece became. We can't get rid of it. People love it. It's the #1 selling piece.
Is it really?
Reminds you of your childhood and like grandma's kitchen with Wonder Bread, squishing jelly out of a bite when you're a kid. And this is a lot of the inspiration behind our chocolate, is trying to create flavors that Americans understand, because Americans are primary customers, and trying to create flavors that bring you back to your childhood.
Sure.
And, that's, and I think it creates a very loyal customer, and loyalty is forever.
Do you have a favorite flavor?
Of course. I'm a milk chocolate and caramel guy.
Okay.
So we do with Tahitian vanilla beans and fleur de sal, sea salt, which is a very important component in caramel. Caramel primarily is made from sugar, so it can be awfully sweet at times. So the sea salt is a very important part of it that helps to accentuate the caramel flavor and also to reduce some of the sweetness. And it's a really beautiful combination with a wonderful milk chocolate.
Wow. One final question for you, Norman. Any advice you have for anyone who's stuck right now, anyone who is thinking about doing something else, following a passion, maybe looking to get into a career like yours? What kind of advice do you have for them?
I think that, there are a few different things. When I graduated high school, there was only a few culinary schools in the country, and they only offered associate's degree in the culinary arts. Today, if you're looking, and there's so many individuals that do career changes and want this passion of getting in the kitchens, but there's ways of getting bachelor's degrees. There's a lot of the universities, whether it be Johnson & Wales University in Providence, or Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, and others throughout the country. Opportunities for education, opportunities for extended education, I think is very important. But I think following your dream and following your passion, I always say in life, you have to be careful what you wish for. I've always had a desire, I've always had the work ethic, and I've always had the drive. But I think business has a certain percentage of luck, risk, but I never compromise the integrity of the product. I come to work every day. The team comes to work every day to try to do something right, to try to make something the best that we possibly can do every day. And that it's not so good today isn't good enough for me. I'm a very detail-oriented, driven guy that wants to be perfect every day. And the standards are high within our organization. But, we work hard every day with 6 locations to try to make every experience for every guest equally pleasant, educational, and enjoyable each and every time they come in our stores or call our call center or visit our website. So as businesses grow, it doesn't get better, it gets harder. I've learned that. Sometimes the early humble beginnings were more fun, but today, with business and all that encompasses, creates a lot of work by a huge team that care and come to work every day to be excellent.
Wow. Norman, thank you so much for doing this today. I really enjoyed this conversation. So many of us enjoy your products, but don't know enough about you. So this was a great way for us to really get to know who Norman Love is. So I thank you for that. I look forward to your expansion throughout the state and further down the road. And I wish you continued success. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.